After 5 years of marriage, I had caught my husband with 99 mistresses. While I was heavily pregnant, his 100th affair partner offended a major client. To save the project, Peter Campbell made me go to the client's house and beg for forgiveness on her behalf. In the pouring rain, I trembled and cried, "The baby is already 7 months old. Walking 20 kilometers in this downpour, the baby won't be able to handle it." He impatiently slapped me to the ground, crying and wailing after just a few steps. "What are you pretending for? Didn't you come from the Appalachian Mountains?" He shoved me into the torrential rain, forcing me to kneel and beg for forgiveness every few steps. Blood flowed from my lower body, streaked with the rainwater. The mistress in the car looked disgusted. "Can't even use a pad when she's on her period. How disgusting." I brushed with death and gave birth prematurely to a daughter weighing less than 3 pounds. When Grandma Campbell came to see me, I used the last of my strength to beg her. The Campbell estate's kindness in sponsoring my education has been repaid with this child. Can you finally let me be free now? Eve Carter, have you thought this through? Peter Campbell is just temporarily infatuated. Can't you? Grandma Campbell choked up, her face full of heartache and reluctance. The news on TV happened to be broadcasting the Campbells' annual gala, drawing our attention. Peter Campbell attended the event with his 100th mistress, Susan Quinn. In the scene, their fingers were intertwined, and the ruby ring on Susan Quinn's ring finger was particularly eye-catching. Their intimate posture attracted plenty of flashes. The director of Campbell's was fawning all over Susan Quinn, who spread the rumor that President Campbell treats Mrs. Campbell badly. He even brings her to the company's annual gala, a match made in heaven that everyone envies. The word Mrs. struck Susan Quinn's heart, and her smile deepened, her face becoming even more radiant. Other employees immediately followed suit, cheering enthusiastically. Like gods descending to earth, come and show us some love. Kiss. Peter Campbell smirked, not refuting his subordinates, but instead embracing Susan Quinn and kissing her passionately. Grandma Campbell froze, immediately grabbing the remote control and turning off the TV. She looked at me with an ashamed expression, her voice lowering. Eve Carter, alas, it's all my fault for meddling. I thought you were a match made in heaven, but it hurt you instead. You don't owe the Campbell estate anything anymore. Go anywhere you want. Grandma Campbell's rough hands caressed my cheek, but I couldn't shed a single tear. In the past 5 years of marriage, I had already cried them all dry. You haven't seen the baby yet. Grandma Campbell's hand froze, and my heart fell like a heavy stone, crashing down and leaving a bloody mess. My dearest flesh and blood, whom I carried for 7 months and nearly died giving birth to. How could I bear to say I didn't want her? In a daze, the nurse had already brought the baby into the room. Mom, look how cute your little one is. She's a bit small, but... No, I don't want to see her. I abruptly turned my head to look out the window, desperately trying not to look at the little bundle wrapped in a pink blanket. Clenching my fists, I told myself not to be soft. Eve Carter, your freedom is outside that window. Nothing can keep you here. The nurse stood there, at a loss, and Grandma Campbell sighed, shaking her head, and motioned for her to take the child away. When the room was once again left with just the two of us, she wiped away her tears and helplessly dialed Peter Campbell's phone. The man's voice on the other end was still relatively gentle. After all, his grandmother was his only remaining family. Grandma, I'm busy with work. You know how much there is to do at the end of the year. I'll come home when I can. Shut up. Are you still lying to Grandma? The news on TV is all about you and those indecent women. Peter Campbell was silent for a moment, then spoke again with a mocking tone. Grandma, your eyes aren't good. How long has it been since you watched TV? Eve Carter must be the one who told you this, the woman. Is that cheap slut next to you? Let her listen. I turned on the speakerphone, and tears fell silently onto the receiver. From the other end of the phone came Peter Campbell's insulting scolding, accompanied by a woman's sobs. Grandma Campbell's eyes reddened, her hand trembling slightly. Eve Carter, finish your postpartum recovery period, then leave the Campbell estate. 2. After being discharged from the hospital, Peter Campbell didn't come to pick me up. But he did, for the first time ever, order a bouquet of flowers for me. In our 5 years of marriage, he had given countless flowers to every one of his mistresses, but I, as his wife, was receiving them for the first time. In the past, I would have treasured and framed even just a card from him. But faced with the large bouquet of lilies, I refused to sign for them. Peter Campbell was furious when he found out, and his voice came through the deliveryman's phone, full of curses. Eve Carter, you ungrateful bitch. I'd rather throw money away and buy them for a dog. He didn't know that I was allergic to lilies and that the pollen would cause me to suffocate. At dinner, Peter Campbell suddenly brought Susan Quinn back to the Campbell estate. I acted as if they were air, continuing to eat as if nothing had happened. Seeing this, Peter Campbell couldn't explode, and he went to the balcony to smoke, seething with anger. Susan Quinn, wearing stiletto heels, swayed her waist as she sat down next to me. Still in the mood to eat? Don't you look at your waist? It's as fat and greasy as a sow, and I heard that women who have given birth are loose and dry down there, can't even hold a pen. How dare you occupy the position of Mrs. Campbell like that? Susan Quinn's tone was dripping with sarcasm. In the past, I would have exploded and retorted to her provocations. But today, I acted as if I were deaf, not even giving her a glance, sitting steadily and continuing to pick up food and eat. She was stunned for a moment, then suddenly laughed in anger. Okay, putting on an act, huh? I'll see how long you can keep it up. With that, she dumped the entire pot of soup on herself, and while I wasn't paying attention, she shoved the pot into my hands and screamed. Miss Carter, I just admire Peter Campbell. What's wrong with love? You can hit me, you can scold me, but why did you have to ruin my face? Susan Quinn was a small-time internet celebrity, usually relying on her beautiful face to attract fans. It was her greatest asset. She had scalded her skin below the neck red, and she was soaking wet, looking pitiful. I heard movement from the balcony. Peter Campbell was about to come in. In the past, faced with such framing, I would have panicked and tried to defend myself, but all I would have gotten in return was Peter Campbell's mockery. Today, I steadily caught the pot of soup, and in Peter Campbell's full view, I smashed the ceramic container directly onto Susan Quinn. Peter Campbell roared and slapped me hard. Bitch! How could the Campbell estate have such a narrow-minded, ungrateful, and stupid woman as the lady of the house? I was slapped to the ground, cut by dozens of pieces of ceramic shards all over my body, and instantly covered in blood. The pain robbed me of all sensation, and all I could hear was Peter Campbell's angry roar. Eve Carter, I'm telling you to apologize to Susan Quinn. Are you deaf? I lowered my head, looking at the bleeding wounds with a silent sneer. Peter Campbell was furious and kicked my lower back, pressing my neck towards Susan Quinn. The woman's gorgeous and arrogant face came into view, the smug smile on her lips was extreme. Ly blatant. Apologize, huh? The next second, I stood up abruptly, pouring the dishes on the table one by one over my head, smashing the empty ceramic containers forcefully against my body. The blood mixed with the soup stung the wounds intensely, but it couldn't compare to the pain in my heart. How is it? Is this apology sincere enough? If it's still not enough. Eve Carter, are you crazy? Peter Campbell saw that I was covered in bruises, a flash of heartache crossed his eyes, and he forcefully restrained my hands, not allowing me to continue hurting myself. "Stop it!" The arm he was holding was covered with needle marks, some still bruised. Peter Campbell's eyes widened, his lips trembling slightly. "What's going on? Why are there so many needle marks?" In our 5 years of marriage, Peter Campbell had more affairs than he had meals at home. The title of Campbells had attracted not ordinary beauties. All were bold and cunning women who used countless tricks to replace me as Mrs. Campbell. After each time I was directly hurt or Peter Campbell took it out on me to protect them, the immense physical and mental pain forced me to seek help from painkillers. Peter Campbell stared blankly at those needle marks, and soon his face turned disdainful. He threw my arm away, looking at me with disgust. "So, Eve Carter, you've become more skilled. Now you know how to use the sympathy card? Let me tell you, acting pitiful won't work on me." I was thrown to the ground again, my hand cut with blood when I propped myself up, but I was already numb with pain. Anyway, there were still 2 weeks left in this postpartum recovery period. 3. After Peter Campbell took Susan Quinn to the hospital, I sat blankly in the living room. My fingers subconsciously twirled the wedding ring on my ring finger. This was the only proof of status I had ever received as Mrs. Campbell. The ill-fitting ring had been wound with several circles of red thread so that it could barely stay on my finger. But after 5 years, the gold plating had faded, revealing the silver underneath. When I bought the wedding ring that year, the salesperson looked at me with disdain. "Such a rich and handsome husband, there's no way he can't afford to buy a better one. She must have been forced into marriage, just casually going through the motions. This woman is so pitiful." But I still happily accepted the ring that Peter Campbell had personally chosen, never willing to take it off. I asked him to wear the men's wedding ring, but he refused. I pestered him repeatedly, and he simply said that he had lost it. So, for the two of us, his hand was always empty, just like he had never been bound by this marriage. I cut off the red thread and took off the ring, and Peter Campbell's mocking voice came from behind. "Finally willing to take it off? Weren't you inseparable from it?" He walked in, smoking and exhaling smoke, looking at me askance. At this moment, his expression instantly reminded me of the wedding day, when he brought the first mistress into our bridal chamber. I grabbed the mistress's hair and dragged her out. Peter Campbell had the same indifferent attitude, smoking his cigarette. Hit her as much as you want, the Campbell estate has plenty of money to compensate. If you hit one, I'll find 10 more. Anyway, there are plenty of women, I can be a groom every night." I used to hate Peter Campbell the most for being like this, always causing trouble but remaining aloof, leaving me to be the desperate, defeated dog. But I'm leaving, so it doesn't matter anymore. I walked around him and went straight into the dressing room to pack my luggage. Peter Campbell rushed in a little anxiously, pushing the suitcase away. "What are you packing for? Leaving?" Was there panic in his eyes? How ridiculous. I dodged him, my tone calm. "It's too cold, going to a hot spring with a good friend." Peter Campbell breathed a sigh of relief. While I was showering, in the midst of the steam, Peter Campbell pushed open the bathroom door and walked in. He said he would help me wash, as an apology for today. I immediately put on a bathrobe, avoiding him with disgust. "Keep your service for those mistresses, I don't want it." Peter Campbell's face was livid, and he said with a sneer, "Eve Carter, what are you pretending to be? Women get angry because men aren't working hard enough in bed, right? Your husband will love you hard tonight." He grabbed my waist and pulled open the bathrobe, burying his head downward. "Get out! Don't touch me!" I struggled desperately, lifting my knee to attack his manhood. Peter Campbell dodged the attack, his eyes bloodshot with anger, and he smashed the bottles and jars in the bathroom hard on the floor. Fine, if you don't want it, plenty of people are waiting for it. Peter Campbell slammed the door and left. I clutched the bathrobe tightly, curling up into a ball and falling asleep uneasily. In the middle of the night, from the other side of the wall next to the head of the bed, came ambiguous and rhythmic sounds, waking me up. Then, the man's teasing and the woman's moans poured into my ears. The room next door was the baby room prepared for the newborn. Peter Campbell was deliberately disgusting me. The door was wide open, and I walked straight to the two of them, staring at their entanglement without blinking. Peter Campbell turned his head and saw me with an indifferent expression, his face changed, and he roared for me to get out. My eyes were a little sore. But it didn't matter, out of sight, out of mind. It would be over soon. For, carrying my luggage, I left the Campbell estate and found a cheap hotel to stay in. Early the next morning, someone knocked hard on the hotel door and woke me up. After checking in yesterday, I only told Lily Miller the address. Opening the door, she anxiously held up her phone for me to see. News about Peter Campbell's affair and forcing his original wife to leave had exploded all over the internet. Hashtag President Campbell can't endure loneliness, brings beauty back to the nest to seek thrills. Hashtag Mrs. Campbell's head is covered in green leaves, and Susan Quinn, who is somewhat famous online, became the target of public criticism, surrounded by keyboard warriors. Oh, pulling this stunt again. Also taking the opportunity to increase her traffic, huh? Anyway, black is also red. But Peter Campbell was blinded by love, and when he saw me, he slapped me without saying a word. Eve Carter, you venomous woman with a heart of snakes. No wonder you pretended not to care last night, you knew the paparazzi were going to take pictures. You want to ruin Susan Quinn. She's already being forced to leave the circle by you, and you still say you don't blame her. How can you be so cruel? Come with me to Susan Quinn's press conference immediately, apologize to her in public, and tell everyone that she is innocent. Innocent? I stroked my face and laughed. Whether she's innocent or not, isn't that up to you? How did it become up to me? Peter Campbell didn't listen to a single word, directly grabbing my collar and dragging me to the press conference. Susan Quinn had a plain face, her eyes swollen like walnuts, and she bowed 90 degrees in apology. Seeing me appear, the reporters immediately surrounded me. Mrs. Campbell, did you order those passionate photos to be taken? Mrs. Campbell, did Susan Quinn really interfere in your relationship with President Campbell? Peter Campbell beside me stared at me with a warning gaze, his eyes like ice. I smiled faintly and stepped forward to help Susan Quinn up. Miss Quinn, you've been wronged. It's all my fault. Then I lowered my head and bowed. Miss Quinn is innocent, she is not a mistress. The hateful person is me, deliberately photoshopping to create fake news to compete for favor. After saying that, I slapped myself in the face. Miss Quinn and my husband are clearly just ordinary bizen. As partners, it's my jealousy that made me frame her, I am a shameless villain. After saying that, I slapped myself on the other side of my face. Susan Quinn's legs were shaking, looking at me in horror. What a terrible woman! She seems to be apologizing, but she's actually making veiled threats. Someone in the audience shouted loudly, speaking up for Susan Quinn. She took advantage of the situation, her legs softened, and she collapsed directly to the ground, pretending to faint. Peter Campbell rushed forward in one step and put his arms around her, glaring at me. Eve Carter, kneel. Apologize sincerely. Locked in his arms, Susan Quinn's eyes clearly flashed with provocation towards me. I suddenly recalled kneeling in the heavy rain half a month ago, which not only caused me to give birth prematurely, but also made me the laughingstock of the entire new capital city. Now, under hundreds of cameras, if I knelt to Susan Quinn, I would completely lose my dignity. Peter Campbell smirked coldly and had someone bring over the work card of my best friend who worked at Campbell's and threw it at my feet. The meaning was clear. Obey and kneel, or protect your best friend's job, choose one. I raised my head, not letting the tears fall. My knees slowly landed on the ground, and the scene was in an uproar. I opened my mouth with a hoarse voice. I, Eve Carter, am a poor student from the Appalachian Mountains who was sponsored by Campbell's, and I once saved Grandma Campbell's life. I wanted to climb the social ladder and become a phoenix, using my gratitude to force Peter Campbell to break up with his true love, Susan Quinn, and marry me. Peter Campbell looked at me in disbelief, as if he didn't expect that I would discredit myself to fulfill them. And the tears I had been holding back finally rolled down my cheeks. All the kindness of the Campbell estate, written off in one stroke. After the press conference, Peter Campbell didn't see me. All night long. His heart beat abnormally fast, and his eyelids kept twitching. All he could see was me kneeling in the rain, kneeling before Susan Quinn. A face that was desperate to the point of being calm. Just as he could no longer hold back and was about to rush out the door to find me, his secretary rushed in. President Campbell, something happened, Mrs. Campbell, she fell off a cliff. 5. Peter Campbell's body stiffened, as if he had tinnitus and couldn't hear anything. You say it again? The secretary looked at him with a terrified expression, not daring to repeat those words, but just turned on the TV and played a video. On a cliff by the sea, a slender figure jumped down against the setting sun. The video was accidentally taken by a mountaineering enthusiast. That fluttering white dress was exactly the same one I wore at the press conference. How is that possible? It's not Eve Carter. It can't be Eve Carter. Peter Campbell repeatedly dragged the progress bar, finally stopping at the second before I jumped. I opened my arms, letting the wind from all directions scatter my hair, and in that moment facing the wind, my face was completely revealed. Even if he hated me, but after all, we had been husband and wife for 5 years, Peter Campbell immediately recognized me. There was no mistake, the person who jumped off the cliff was Eve Carter. My suicide overshadowed the public opinion climax brought about by the press conference. The netizens who had been scolding me for being a shameless gold digger who interfered in other people's relationships instantly turned against me and felt sorry for me for being cyberbullied to death. Lamenting that I had spent my whole life trying to become Mrs. Campbell, but in the end, I had nothing. Peter Campbell didn't believe that I was really dead. Because the cliff was in the remote wilderness, the body search yielded no results for a long time. But Peter Campbell insisted on seeing me alive or dead. A week later, Granum. A Campbell came to our new house to find him. The house was still exactly as I had left it, except for the empty bottles and the drunken Peter Campbell. Peter Campbell, today is Eve Carter's memorial service. After a week, as her husband, you should attend. Peter Campbell shouted and knocked over the wine bottles beside him, his eyes full of bloodshot veins. What memorial service, after a week? Only dead people have memorial service, after a week. Eve Carter is not dead, they haven't found her body, why should they say she's dead? You're all acting, trying to trick me into thinking she's dead, right? Ha, there's no way you can trick me. He pressed the hard wine bottle against his stomach, relieving the severe discomfort caused by the gastric perforation. Grandma Campbell looked at him with heartache, her voice choking. Peter Campbell, your stomach has never been good, get up and take some medicine, okay? Peter Campbell's eyes suddenly lit up, smiling brightly. That's right, my stomach hurts. Eve Carter, my stomach hurts so much, quickly give me medicine. Years of high-intensity work had made Peter Campbell's diet and routine very irregular, and stomach problems were a natural consequence. Over the years, I had worried about his health, and at the next second he frowned, I would prepare gentle stomach medicine and warm water, feed him, and then gently rub his stomach, coaxing him to sleep. Grandma Campbell was in tears, but she brought a basin of cold water and splashed it over his head. "Peter Campbell, wake up! It's too late to regret it now. The person is gone." Too late, yes, it's too late. In the moment Peter Campbell closed his eyes, his memories flashed back to 15 years ago. 6, with 4 younger sisters and 1 younger brother, I was the eldest child in the family. When I turned 12, my family was too poor and wanted to sell me to exchange for betrothal gifts to support my younger siblings. It was the Campbell Estates P. Overty Alleviation Scholarship Fund that saved me, and my parents let me continue my studies after receiving the relief. I studied hard, was admitted to State University, and successfully walked out of the Appalachian Mountains. In order to gain a foothold in the big city, I noticed the kind-hearted Grandma Campbell, who would attend donation events in the mountains every year. By chance, during a stormy day, her car got stuck in the mud in a moment of crisis. I gritted my teeth and pulled her out of the car, carrying her through the rain and out of the mountains, away from danger. From then on, Grandma Campbell always remembered my kindness and resilience, hoping that I would become her granddaughter-in-law. Until I met Peter Campbell under her arrangement, I realized that he was the senior I had admired for 4 years in college. Even more fortunately, he had noticed me in college, but later couldn't find me and thought he had missed out on a regret. I thought true love had arrived and I could be happy for the rest of my life. The day before the wedding, Peter Campbell threw a stack of photos in my face. They were all evidence of how I had tried to follow Grandma Campbell. In his eyes, everything had changed. The accident in the mountains was orchestrated by me. The purpose was to use my gratitude to coerce Grandma Campbell into arranging us to be together. From beginning to end, I was just a vain and gold-digging woman. His love for me vanished in an instant, and on the wedding day, he brought a mistress into the bridal chamber to slap me in the face. He used the power of the Campbell estate to directly dissolve our marital relationship, leaving me with an empty title and living alone. My despair reached its peak in the game of catching him with different mistresses year after year. A year ago, I told Grandma Campbell that I really couldn't hold on anymore. Grandma Campbell cried bitterly. Peter Campbell is the only male heir for 3 generations, the CA. Bell Estate's bloodline must not come from an indecent woman outside. Just one child, whether it's a boy or a girl. Please, just consider it as repaying the Campbell Estate's kindness over the years. But after these years of marriage, Peter Campbell hadn't even touched me with a finger. So, Grandma Campbell forced him to have a child with me. Peter Campbell reluctantly slept with me one night, insulting me to no end. Fortunately, I got pregnant successfully. In the 3rd month of pregnancy, I was provoked by Peter Campbell's 98th mistress and fell down the stairs, almost miscarrying. He stopped me from calling an ambulance, his eyes as cold as ice. This child was never supposed to be born, it's its fate to die now. Fortunately, Grandma Campbell came to visit temporarily and saved the child's life. All the things that Peter Campbell thought I had painstakingly planned were just to repay his kindness. At this moment, the truth came out, and he was filled with regret and cried out in pain. How could I be so stupid? I loved her but hurt her again and again. Grandma Campbell helped him up and took him to my funeral. Eve Carter's body has been found, let her be buried in peace. The person in the coffin was fragmented, barely pieced together by the mortician so that the facial features could be recognized. Peter Campbell gently brushed my hair away, touching behind my ear. Suddenly, his face changed drastically. 7. That's not right. This isn't Eve Carter. The real Eve Carter has a raised mole behind her ear. The light that had died in Peter Campbell's eyes suddenly burst forth, like a child who had received candy. He grabbed Grandma Campbell's hand, crying and laughing. Grandma, Eve Carter isn't dead. I said she wouldn't die. Then he called his secretary and mobilized all of the Campbell estate's resources and connections, searching every inch of the city for my traces. Every street, the entire internet, was plastered with high-reward information about my whereabouts. Sadly, he discovered that he didn't even have a single picture of me in his daily life. The only portraits of me that he could find were scenes of me kneeling in the rain, or kneeling at the press conference. The traces I left behind in this city were so pathetic. Countless people fabricated information for the reward money, all of them were beaten up by Peter Campbell and then driven out of New Capital City. Gradually, even the fake news disappeared. Just like that, I vanished without a trace, no longer causing any ripples in Peter Campbell's life. Peter Campbell returned to our new house in despair, sitting in the place I used to sit, unmoving for a long time. His gaze fell blankly on the coffee table. Then suddenly he shouted and called the nanny. Mrs. Campbell took off her wedding ring here. Where is the ring? The nanny shook her head. Mrs. Campbell probably threw it away herself. Peter Campbell desperately recalled the scene that day. He smoked while watching me cut the red string and then took off the ring. The wedding ring, revealing large patches of silver, had been thrown into the fireplace by me. Peter Campbell's eyes widened, and he immediately got down on the ground to rummage through the ashes of the fireplace. The embers of the recently extinguished fireplace were scalding hot, burning dozens of small blisters on his hands at once. But he frantically clawed at the ashes as if he felt nothing, unable to find the remains of the ring. Where's the ring? Who cleaned the fireplace? All the servants trembled as they looked at him, and no one dared to speak. The last young girl looked at him, shivering, her teeth chattering. Mr. Campbell, I'm sorry. I cleaned the fireplace 3 days ago according to the house rules and swept everything into the trash. So all of the Campbell estate's resources and connections were mobilized again to find a small, burnt ring. 3 days later, Peter Campbell held the deformed wedding ring, slipping it onto his finger, his heart aching. The names of me and him, engraved on the inside of the ring, had been scratched out by me. Eve, are you really so cruel? This is our wedding ring, the testament of our love. In fact, Peter Campbell and I had once been in love. Before he thought he had exposed my true colors, our love was as sweet as sugar. However, it was fleeting. The memories and mementos left behind from that brief, beautiful time were ruthlessly destroyed by him, almost impossible to find. Peter Campbell walked into the study. He hated me. Even as the lady of the Campbell estate, I didn't live a life of luxury. But all I loved were books. On the bookshelf was a poetry collection that he had given me at our engagement. Peter Campbell gently stroked the cover, trying to feel the warmth I had left behind. But I hadn't looked at this book in a long time, and a thin layer of dust had settled on it. He gently turned the pages, when suddenly a yellowed piece of paper fell out. Peter Campbell thought this was an indication from heaven, guiding him in my direction. With trembling hands, he opened the paper, and his gaze froze the moment it landed on the title. The 4 words diagnosis certificate stung his eyes. The thin page clearly stated that I had somatization symptoms caused by mental depression and needed to take large doses of medication and constant painkiller injections to relieve the pain. The diagnosis was 8 months ago, which was when his mistress caused me to fall and miscarry. Peter Campbell's nails dug into his palm, scratching out bloody marks. But it didn't relieve even a bit of the pain of a 1,000-pound boulder being hammered 1,000 times. No wonder, my arms were covered in dense needle marks. Every small hole was proof of Peter Campbell's harm to Eve Carter. And he insisted on thinking that I was pretending, deliberately mocking me. Now you're using a sympathy ploy? I'm telling you, playing the victim doesn't work on me. Hot tears streamed down his face. Peter Campbell suppressed his sobs, but his throat seemed to be choked, unable to cry out. I'm scum! Why did I treat her like that? Why wasn't I the one who died? He clutched his head with both hands, slamming it against the wall like a madman. The white wall was stained with solidified blood, like a past that could never be returned to. In New Capital City, news of Peter Campbell spending a fortune to find me was everywhere. But the real me had already quietly gone to a small Southeast Asian country thousands of miles away. That blood-red twilight, I really did jump off the cliff and commit suicide. But perhaps heaven thought I wasn't destined to die, and I was caught on a tree and rolled into the river at the bottom of the cliff. The person who rescued me from the turbulent river was Ethan Rivers, my childhood sweetheart whom I hadn't seen in years. In the suffocating river water filling my lungs, he insisted on giving me CPR, pulling me back from the hands of death. Eve Carter, how dare you not live well for me? I won't allow it. You've already left Peter Campbell, live on, open your eyes and look at me, you owe me a life to repay for a lifetime. The burning breath on his lips rekindled the fire of my life. I followed Ethan Rivers to the small Southeast Asian country where he had worked hard for many years. After learning about Peter Campbell's abnormal behavior, he contacted people in the country and spent a fortune to put together a fake corpse that was almost identical to me and threw it at the bottom of the cliff, deliberately letting the Campbell estate find it. But we never expected that Peter Campbell would know about the small mole behind my ear. But by the time he reacted, we had already crossed the ocean to another country. In Serenity Falls, the most famous Buddhist city in this Southeast Asian country, Ethan Rivers, who came out of the Appalachian Mountains with me, had already founded Hi's own company. And he also had a self-created jewelry brand, Eve's Thoughts. He looked at me with shock in his eyes, and smiled and nodded. Just as I thought, he created it using my name. It was also created for my jewelry design dreams. My childhood friend and I worked together, I was responsible for the design, and Ethan Rivers was responsible for channel sales. In just 3 years, Eve's Thoughts quickly made a name for itself and became famous in the industry. Business was booming, and life gradually became stable. After the storm in the country subsided, I secretly contacted my best friend, Lily Miller, and learned that she had left the Campbell estate and opened a bakery that was doing very well. She told me in a low voice that Peter Campbell's temperament had changed drastically. All of his past 100 mistresses had been blacklisted, and those who had hurt me were all sold to northern Myanmar. After cleaning up the house, he didn't look for women again, and completely abstained from worldly desires, focusing only on work and his child. I laughed it off as someone else's story, but I didn't expect the people in the story to reappear in my life. At the global new product launch of Eve's Thoughts, I accidentally revealed my profile. Half a day later, Peter Campbell, dressed in black, stepped into the studio door of Eve's Thoughts. I looked up from the design draft and met his dark eyes. Peter Campbell's eyes were tearful, and his voice trembled with excitement. Eve, you're really still alive. I've been looking for you for 3 years. Do you know how much I miss you, how much I want you to come back to my side? Everything in the past was my fault, it was my suspicion that hurt you, I will definitely. Before he could finish speaking, I interrupted him. Peter Campbell, forget it. I already have a new life, I don't want to mention the past. Peter Campbell met my cold eyes, and his pupils shrank. He immediately forced a smile and pulled my sleeve to look at my arm with concern. Eve, I know about your illness. How are you now? Are you still getting injections? With a snap, I knee-lie his hand and took 2 steps back warily. Although the scars of the past have faded, it doesn't mean that the person who hurt me is qualified to pretend. The hot Southeast Asian temperature and the fervent humanity here have long healed my body and mind. Now I am happily chasing my dreams, watching the patterns in my drafts become 3-dimensional works, and gaining more and more sense of accomplishment. I am no longer the Eve Carter who cowered in the Campbell estate, trembling and worrying that I wouldn't be able to be a good Mrs. Campbell. I am Eve Carter, who is born towards the sun and runs towards a new life. The darkness of the past must not invade my life even the slightest bit. Peter Campbell was called by me to call security and unceremoniously kicked out the door. But he just looked at me, his face full of determination. Eve, the future is long, I have confidence, we will live happily together again. From then on, Peter Campbell began endless entanglement. Just as I was about to apply for a government restraining order to restrict his movements, he was carrying a small child, blocking my way. Lily, this is Mommy, quickly call Mommy. I froze in place, looking at the young face in front of me that was somewhat similar to my own. After all, blood is thicker than water, and natural maternal love made me unable to refuse her approach. I couldn't help but reach out to hug Lily, but she suddenly cried. I panicked and didn't know what to do. Peter Campbell's face darkened and he pulled the child over and scolded her. What's wrong with you? You've been saying you want Mommy every day, now Mommy is right in front of you? Call her. His gloomy face scared Lily even more, and she didn't dare to approach me. I took a breath and clapped my hands as I stood up. Maybe we don't have a strong mother-daughter bond, so there is no need to force it. Peter Campbell was a little at a loss. He hugged the child and coaxed her softly, and could only look at me reluctantly as I left. After this trick with the child didn't work, Peter Campbell came up with a new plan. Suddenly, many people came to patronize my business, and jewelry sales became more and more popular. But these people were obviously hired by Peter Campbell. They didn't even look at the jewelry, they just swept up the goods and left. I tactfully refused their purchases and walked up to Peter Campbell and said, "Why do you have to force this? I design jewelry not for fame or profit, but to make myself happy. My dream is for others to truly be happy to own the jewelry I designed, not just a simple transaction. Lily shouldn't be here, take her away, don't come again." Just as Peter Campbell turned to leave, Ethan Rivers, who had been away on a business trip for quite some time, returned to the country. We agreed to have a drink and enjoy the breeze at our old spot tonight. Ethan Rivers, who always wears casual clothes, was wearing a formal suit tonight. My heart jumped, and I teased him with a smile. "What's wrong? What's the special occasion today?" He stared at my eyes with a burning gaze, full of affection. Ethan Rivers hesitated for a long time, and actually took out a candy apple for me. I laughed in surprise and happily bit into the long-lost sweetness. In the Appalachian Mountains where Ethan Rivers and I came from, candy apples were a rare thing. Before I was 10 years old, I had only eaten it once. It was a string that Ethan Rivers' father brought back from his work in New Capital City, and he secretly left one for me. That sweet and sour taste is still deeply imprinted in my taste buds. Snap, the place where my teeth met was a cold, hard metal object. I took out a simple pink diamond ring, and my eyes turned red. This was the first jewelry design I made in college. The drawing was long gone, but I didn't expect Ethan R. Ivers to keep it all along. How long has the man in front of me loved me? Ethan Rivers' throat moved, and he knelt down on one knee and looked up at me. "Eve Carter, this is the 20th year we've known each other. It's also the 15th year that I've loved you. Will you marry me? He is my childhood sweetheart and also my savior, and from now on, he will be my life partner." Just as I was about to nod, a group of men in black suddenly surrounded Ethan Rivers and pinned him to the ground. Peter Campbell walked out from behind them, like a demon descending into the world. He grabbed my chin and forced me to look directly at him. "Eve, you're really naughty. Just for a moment, you want to marry another man? But unfortunately, there's no chance. I'll let this man watch with his own eyes, as we are inseparable, tender and affectionate, and have a night of bliss." After saying that, he violently tore my clothes. Peter Campbell, you're crazy. This is rape. I screamed and struggled desperately. Peter Campbell had lost his mind and ordered the men in black to hold Ethan Rivers' head and watch him assault me. Ethan Rivers, whose mouth was stuffed with rags, had red eyes, and his throat overflowed with angry roars. Just as Peter Campbell's lips were about to land on mine, I used all my strength, raised my head and gave him a slap. The sound of the slap resounded through the night sky. Peter Campbell's face quickly showed 5 red finger marks. He gritted his teeth and sneered. It's okay, Eve, hitting is affection, scolding is love. I will take good care of you. Peter Campbell locked my hands behind my back, and his huge body pushed me to the ground. With another tearing sound. My upper body could no longer cover my snow-white skin. Flames surged in Peter Campbell's eyes, and the look in his eyes was stubborn and hot. Eve is still so beautiful, such a beautiful body can only be owned by me alone. Forever and always belong to me alone, okay? Always and only. Love me alone, okay? Like before. I opened my mouth and bit his neck with all my strength, and the bloody taste overflowed from the corner of my mouth. You wish! Peter Campbell, you are worse than a beast. You disgust me. Don't touch me. My struggle aroused his excitement even more. He licked the blood from the corner of my mouth and grinned. Look, aren't we now intertwined? As he said that, his rough palm reached towards my lower abdomen. I screamed and, as I twisted, the bun in my hair came loose, and the pen I used to temporarily hold it fell to the ground. Quickly picking up the pen, I didn't hesitate to pull off the cap, and roared as I stabbed at Peter Campbell. His arm was cut with a long, terrible wound. But Peter Campbell didn't feel any pain, he just looked at me helplessly, his eyes doting. Stab, Eve, stab a few more times. If it makes Eve happy, I'm willing to bleed as much as I want. As he said that, he grabbed my hand and raised the pen to stab his own chest. I was shaking all over, and my throat was about to break. Just as the sharp tip of the pen was about to sink into his chest with my hand, a force slammed Peter Campbell away. Ethan Rivers kicked Peter Campbell 5 meters away. He squatted down and took off his clothes to wrap me up. Peter Campbell's men in black had been subdued by more burly men who appeared from who knows where. Peter Campbell, who was spitting blood, fell to the ground, dying, watching me being picked up by Ethan Rivers. Eve, don't go, don't leave me. I buried my head deeply in Ethan Rivers' arms, letting him take me home without looking back. It was only then that I realized that my childhood sweetheart, Ethan Rivers, was actually the son of a Southeast Asian tycoon who had been lost for many years. The reason he suddenly disappeared 5 years ago and suddenly took root in Serenity Falls was that he had been recognized by his biological father. Then, he had his subordinates quickly deal with Peter Campbell and those men in black, making sure they could never set foot in any Southeast Asian country. And I, in this hot-ass fire country, gained the most sincere love and the most beautiful happiness.